DND number 4, Weeds Grow in Jesus' Name, Chapter 16. You're down to one man, Beth sneered from her place on the floor near the bed in the dirty, smelly motel room. If you can call Duke a man, she said, glaring at the large man. Tommy kicked her in the thigh. Shut up. She tugged on her ropes, which only caused her pain. Her wrists were raw, but sensing a possible end to the whole mess, she continued to probe. What are you going to do now, huh? They're not going to let you get near Jeffy. You can't even get close. Bree's little plan cost you another man. You're beaten, Tommy. In a rage, he came at her, and she turned, huddled against the wall, protecting her face. He kicked her several times until she pleaded for him to stop. Okay, oh, please stop, she grunted in pain. She was saved by the breaking news on the television. They both quieted to hear a smiling anchorwoman report that Brianna Adams had been transported to the hospital in the middle of the night. Well, Duke said, addressing Tommy, looks like Hector did a better job than we thought. Yeah, maybe. He turned back to Beth, a look of determination on his face. The Kenos will not win this time. They killed my brother, and the kid is going to die, and you're going to be the one to kill her. That will never happen, Beth returned, and when he didn't kick her again, she became worried. He was smiling. New scene. That was Jillian Knight, Eric said as he hung up the phone. Shelley looked up from the book she and Jeffy were reading. And in light of everything that's going down, she'd like to continue the interviews. She wants to come to the house. Shelley frowned. What did you tell her? He smiled. I told her I'd better check with my wife and get back to her. You did? Of course. So what do you have to say? She sighed heavily. I guess it would be okay. At least I don't have to get all dressed up. Okay, then I'll arrange it. Shelley nodded. No, Ricky, please don't do this, Bree pleaded as they headed down the stairs. Mom, you have to reason with him. Eric, you have to forbid him. Forbid me? Eric's eyebrows rose. Forbid him? From doing what? From fighting. He doesn't have to do this. He's letting them goad him into it. No one can goad me into doing anything I don't really want to do, and I take that as an insult. You take it any way you want. Just please don't do this. What if it's Tommy planning a way to get to you? He already got to me. It's not me he wants, and if it is me he wants, I'm more than willing to face him with my hands free. Do you think I'm going to hide in a corner? No, of course not. That's not what I meant. Would you mind telling me what you're talking about? Eric asked. Ricky turned toward his father. Remember that paparazzo that gave me a hard time a month or so ago? Yes. Well, he started a big rumor campaign saying that I'm a fake, that I don't really know how to fight, and it's all movie magic. That's why an ex-con like Tommy Crane was able to take me so easily. He's challenged me to a bare knuckles tournament. He wants to fight you? Shelley asked. Heck, I'll fight him. Eric laughed. Down, girl. Not him. He's lined up 5 guys, supposedly some of the top fighters in the state. And they want to challenge you? Eric asked. Yes. Well, either they're stupid or they really believe they have a chance, Shelley said. Ricky smiled. Well, thanks for the vote of confidence, Shell, but everyone has a chance. Eric eyed his son, his mind quickly going over the opportunity being presented. Ricky hadn't competed in a long time. He'd been a 7-time national champion at one point. He needed this, especially after the beating he took at Tommy's hands. It would be good for him. It would be good for the entire family. They would have something positive to focus on, a different goal other than catching Tommy. And there was also a certain amount of pride involved. He smiled at his son. Get some protein in you and meet me on the beach. Ricky grinned. Bree gasped, her hands on her hips. I don't believe this. You're encouraging him? What about his broken fingers? Just because the splints are gone doesn't mean they're completely healed. That could be a source of pain, Ricky said. You'll have to do a good job taping me up, Dad. Eric nodded. Listen, it will be good for the family to appear together in public and to watch Ricky kick some butt. He turned to Ricky. And you will kick some butt. Well, absolutely. Oh, goody, Jeffy said. I want to be a cheerleader, like the ones at Mark's football games. Can I be a cheerleader, Mom? Sure you can, Angel Face. We'll get you a new outfit. Okay, and maybe Kimmy will want to do it with me. Oh, and I want some music to dance to. Bree, will you help me? You used to be a cheerleader, didn't you? Mom says you were. I want you to help me. We can cheer together. Will you, Bree, please? Well, I guess I can't turn that down, can I? She said with a smile. Then she turned back to Ricky and Eric. What if he loses? Bree asked. Good grief, Bree, Ricky said, shaking his head. Will you please have some faith in me? I'm sorry. I will. I do. I just worry. Well, Justin will be unhappy if you try to take his job, Eric said. When and where? He asked Ricky. 3 weeks, Saturday, at the Rosewood Sports Arena. Do you know the names of the competitors? I can get them. Eric nodded. Good. Let's get started. Shelley, when Mark and Joey get home, send them to us. Okay, though, Eric, I was just thinking we should put a stipulation on this. What sort of stipulation? We should do it only if all proceeds go towards Jeffy's project. Yay! Yes, Mommy, that would be awesome. Bree's brow furrowed. Actually, that is a really good idea, Mom. I could get a few celebs involved to endorse the project. We could come up with some catchy phrase and charge a hefty admission, get producers, get sponsors. I'll make some calls. Good, Bree, Shelley said. And you'll help Jeffy cheer, and we'll get some other celebrity cheerleaders, maybe some halftime type entertainment. This could turn into a really big deal. Absolutely, so you know what that means. No, what? Shelley asked. Bree turned to Ricky. It means you'd better win. Ricky shook his head as he left the room with his father, as if there was a question. New scene. Ricky sprawled on his back in the wet sand, his chest heaving, sweat pouring from his forehead. Joey lay beside him, Mark beside Joey. The three of you just got your butts kicked by a 49-year-old man, Jason said. A 49-year-old grandmaster, Joey returned. Get up, Eric ordered. Joey started to argue, and Ricky shook his head at him. Yes, sir, the trio said. They rose. For lying around like that, I want 50 push-ups right now. Mark, your excuse, since you won your game last night. When you finish, Joey, get the kicking pads and run Ricky through the mill. Then Ricky, take a water break. Then you got Jason one-on-one, then Joey. Then all three on one, get to it. Eric moved aside and watched as Ricky and Joey finished their punishment and worked on the kicking pads. Jason, Mark, and Justin stood silently next to him. When he was in teaching mode, no one dare speak unless spoken to. They had an audience. Jason's agents, who were assigned to the men, were having a blast watching the training that had taken place all week. What was that? Eric demanded. A fake roundhouse to a spinning crescent, Ricky said. Eric rolled his eyes. Rick stood breathing hard, hands on hips, waiting to hear what he'd done poorly. You're moving in slow motion, and your hip is turned out. Do it again. Ricky spun, kicked, knocking the kicking pad out of Joey's hands. That's better. Don't get sloppy. And again. Eric watched and coached and taught and pushed. And when it came time for the sparring, Jason wore Ricky down, but Ricky came out on top. Joey held his own for a few minutes. Against the three of them, Ricky struggled with fatigue, but could have been called the victor. Eric, however, didn't see it that way. 1 week down already, Rick. Not much time left. You have a lot of work to do. You, Mark, and Joey, go have dinner. After dinner, I want to see you. You need some mind work. The three young men lined up quickly and bowed to the master. Eric bowed back. He turned to Jason's men. Any volunteers to spar tomorrow? They all raised their hands. Good. 10 a.m. His hand scratched his chin as he eyed Justin and Jason. What do you think? He's going to kill someone, Justin said. Jason grinned. I can't wait for this thing, man. Ricky is going to kick major butt. I can't imagine there's anyone who could beat him right now. You're not thinking otherwise. No, I just wanted to be sure that I'm not doing that fatherly pride, non-objective kind of thing. 10 more days of training and Ricky's going to be a freaking machine, Jason said. This is really good for him, Eric said. It's been good for the entire family, Justin added. Once Bree got her friends involved, the positive press has sent this event into prime time. I'm sure the little reporter who began this thing is not happy with how it's turning out. He wasn't a reporter, but speaking of reporters or journalists, how'd it go with Jillian the other day? Jason asked. It went well. She and Shelley hit it off. Jillian is in seventh heaven with all the escapades going on around her here. She doesn't think her article will be able to cover it, so she wants to do a book, and we're considering it. A book about what Tommy's doing to your family? A book about the family, including the whole Crane Brothers episode in our lives. They could make a movie about all this stuff, Justin said. She mentioned that, Eric said with a smile. Well, this little competition has been a great help to lift spirits around here and to get everyone's mind off Tommy and his threats. Nevertheless, I've spoken with my men to make sure that they don't let the lighter air make them forget the importance of not letting their guard down. Eric nodded. That would be wise of everyone. He turned to Justin. You ready to take your punishment? Justin nodded. Don't get cocky, Master Kino. He pulled his shirt over his head, revealing a strong, trained physique. He bowed. After you. Eric and Justin squared off as Jason and his men bandied insults and cheers. New scene. His eyes opened the moment she opened his door. He'd been sleeping alone in his own room for 3 reasons. One, being it was too difficult to sleep near her and not have her. 2, he was trying to keep God's law. And 3, he was exhausted and needed to sleep. He trained hard over the past weeks, given it his all so that he wouldn't let his family down, so that he wouldn't let her down. She'd seen his movies. She'd seen him train the boys or spar in a class, yet she'd never seen him fight, not a real fight. Was it wrong to want to impress her? He wasn't worried about being focused. He'd learned that long ago. He wasn't worried about getting tired or not knowing how to handle the 2 bigger guys. He wasn't worried that the event was being televised and that it had become a big money maker. His father had always seen to it that he was completely at ease, focused, and at peak. Now, he just needed to rest. He watched her come forward in the dark, peeking down at him to see if he was awake. He lifted the cover, and she smiled and crawled in beside him, snuggling up under his chin. He sighed. Man, but it felt good to have her close. He wrapped his arms around her. Well, hello there, he said. Hey, there you go again with that southern thing. Well, sorry if that bothers you. I just needed to see you. I'm so lonely. I'm glad you came. And I don't mind the southern thing. It's just that it gets to me. Gets to you? Yeah, makes my heart beat 1,000 beats a minute. She placed her hand on his chest. You weren't lying. I never lie. She sighed. I wish the 6 weeks were over. He sighed. He'd never spoken to her about his spiritual beliefs. Of course, she knew they were very much into God and Jesus and prayer and honesty. She'd even attended church with the family a few times, but things had been so crazy lately, he hadn't had a chance to explain to her that he really shouldn't be having sex with her until they were married. And it was kind of hard to talk about that when he hadn't actually proposed yet. It was also hard to do since he'd already carried her to this bed and made love to her and gotten her pregnant. Sin had its consequences. He'd prayed, repented from the casual sex he'd had that had drained his soul and brought him home. Then he'd turned around and taken Bree. Then he'd prayed and repented again. But now he needed to explain to her that he loved her enough to wait, that sex was not what he wanted from her. Well, that it wasn't all he wanted from her. Hello? Sorry, he mumbled. He was just too tired to get into a big discussion tonight. We're only a little over halfway through the 6 weeks, so put it out of your mind. Will you at least kiss me? Gladly. His fingers lifted her chin. He leaned forward and kissed her softly. She purred. He pulled away at the sound and smiled at her. You taste good. Oh, Ricky, I want you so badly. I want you too, baby, more than you can know. I feel fine. No. Really, I'm back to normal. There's no bleeding, no pain. I'm glad to hear that. So it's okay to make love to me? No. Ricky, she whined. Bree, stop, please. Ricky, I need you. I need you too. Then do it. Just do it. No. Why? She asked in exasperation. Doc says 6 weeks. So, do we really care what the doctor says? Not really, but let's say I make love to you, and there is a problem. I hurt you, or you get an infection, or you get pregnant before the 6 weeks is up. It's not like we could hide that from the fam. I would have to answer to your mother, and even worse, to my father. They will want me to explain how I could say I love you and then be so irresponsible as to put you in danger simply because my hormones were running wild. I want you, Bree, but I'm a man, not an animal, and I should be able to control my urges. I would tell them that it wasn't you, it was me. He laughed. You realize that argument would be extremely weak in the presence of our parents. I can see it now. Oh, it's not my fault. It's Bree. She seduced me. Oh, yeah, that would fly. She sighed. Of course, you're right. Ricky kissed her forehead. Bree, I have to get some rest now. You want me to leave? No, stay here with me, please, but I have to sleep. Okay, sleep. They curled up together in the spoon position. Bree closed her eyes and nestled her hips back against Ricky. He sighed. Oh, Ricky, I'm sorry. I'm not meaning to tease you. Well, then be still. New scene. Tommy paced, ranting and raving as he watched the news. How he hated the acclaim the Kinos received on a constant basis. Now, here they are participating in this event as if he were nothing to worry about. It was a real slap in the face, and it was making him crazy. Well, while Ricky's busy smiling pretty for the cameras, Tommy intended to send him a message too. He called Duke. What you need, Tommy? Tommy smiled. I've got a project for you. Good, I'm sick of sitting. I need you to go into L.A. I want you to take down that friend of Kino, that friend of the Kinos who's doing all the snooping. New scene. Shelley opened her eyes as the drop of water hit her face. Smiling, she stretched and reached up to grab Eric's head and bring him down for a luxurious kiss. Just like old times, she purred. I bet this time, though, you're a little more relaxed. Actually, it's just the opposite. I'm worried sick. Eric shook his head. Why is everyone so worried? Rick is the best. Rick is the best. I've not seen his equal, and I'm not saying that because he's my son. I'll just be happy when it's all over. Well, do me a favor and don't let him know that you have anything but confidence in him. She drew a deep breath. I do have confidence in him. After all, he was trained by you. Where's Jeffy? Eric asked. Bree came to get her. They're working on Jeffy's little dance. Well, then we're all alone? Shelley smiled. Yes, we are. Lock the door. New scene. What now was being called the Kino Challenge had turned into a huge event. They would be playing to a sellout crowd, and that crowd had to pay a pretty penny for their seats. As soon as the Kino entourage arrived, Eric left to see to some last-minute details, while the rest of the family remained by Ricky's side. Ricky stopped to speak with students, fans, and friends. All of them left him with the same command. Kick some butt, Kino. Ricky turned when he heard a deep voice call his name. He looked up with a grin to see Toby Nash, the famous country singing legend, approach, holding an adorable toddler in his arms. Caroline, his beautiful wife of 3 years, walked by his side. Hey, man, Toby said, gripping Ricky's hand, then pulling him in for a quick hug and a pat on the back. Toby, good to see you. Bree said you might be able to make it. Wouldn't miss this. Caro, Bree said, taking her hands, it's so good to see you. You too, Bree. It's amazing, isn't it, how small the world is? When I met you way back when you were in middle school, who would have known that you would become America's favorite actress? And who would have known that you would one day run the nation's top dance school, plus become a choreographer for celebrity dancing and for America Can Dance? Shelley stepped forward and hugged Caroline. It's nice to see you again. You too, Mrs. Kino. Shelley. You must call me Shelley. Caroline smiled. I promise to try. And who is this? Shelley asked, taking the small hand that reached out toward her. This, Toby answered as he bounced her on his hip, is Princess Grace. Gracie, for short. Shelley laughed. Hello there, Gracie. The child beamed and reached for Shelley. Toby relinquished his hold, and Gracie flew willingly into Shelley's arms. Well, that is amazing, Caroline said. She's usually quite the snob. No, she's not, Shelley said in a sing-song voice. Oh, no, you're not, are you, sweetie? I want to meet her, Jeffy demanded. Bree stepped forward then, making quick introductions to the rest of the family. Toby Nash and Ricky had become friends several years ago when they'd done a charity event for breast cancer together. And when Toby had been arrested 3 years ago for a murder he didn't commit, Ricky had let him know he was there for him and willing to do anything Toby needed, Luckily, it hadn't gone that far. The small world thing came into play when Bree realized the girl Toby Nash was engaged to was the same high school girl who'd come to teach dance to Bree when she was in middle school. She only knew her for a few weeks, but Carol stayed in the minds of both Bree and Shelley because they'd recognized the bruises on her as signs of abuse. "So, you two staying out of trouble?" Ricky asked. "So far," Toby said. "Caroline keeps me straight, and that little one," he said, pointing to the cherub in Shelley's arms. Ricky smiled. "They're worth it, aren't they?" "Oh, Rick, if only you knew. Man, I never thought life could be so good. And in about 7 months, it's going to be even better." "Another one? Wow. That's great, man," Ricky said, eyeing Bree. He wondered if she felt a pull at the loss of their child. "So, I hear you're going to sing tonight." Bree is hard to turn down, so yes. But even better, Caroline is going to dance with the cheerleaders. "She promised to let us focus a few dances around her since she's the pro and we're just trying to stay on our feet," Bree said. "She's one heck of a dancer," Toby asked. "I've been watching some of the moves she has planned, and y'all are in for a big treat." "We all?" Ricky questioned, making fun of Toby's southern accent. "Watch it, Keno, or I might get into the ring with you." Ricky smiled at the large man. Toby was a 6'4", 220-pound farm boy who could hold his own. "You name the time and place, and I'll be there." "Oh, my Lord, too much testosterone for me," Bree quoted from one of her favorite movies. "Come on, girls, let's go get into our uniforms." "Hold up just a minute, okay, Bree?" Ricky asked. She stopped. "Sure." "Well," Toby said, "I'd better let you get doing whatever it is you do before something like this. Kick some butt, man. You can bet on it." Shelley gave Gracie back to Toby. "We're all sitting over there, near the cheerleaders. We've reserved seats for you. Come on. I'll be happy to escort a handsome man and his little princess to their seat." Ricky quickly pulled Bree to him. He knew he shouldn't ask because there were cameras everywhere, but he couldn't help it. "A kiss for luck?" She glanced around. She'd already made the decision to love him no matter what, so here goes. Wrapping her arms tightly around his neck, she laid one on. The camera flashes were blinding. She pulled away and pushed some hair off his forehead. "Don't get hit," she quoted. He laughed. "Better advice has not been given." Steve joined him as Bree walked away. "Now, that was a sight. Do you realize you are about to be Hollywood's new power couple?" "Like that's important. Don't distract me, Stevie boy. I'm focused." "Good. Focus on this. I have a new source who swears he can give me Tommy's location. I'll have to meet with him sometime tonight, so if I suddenly have to leave, that's why." "Is it costing you?" "Don't worry, I'll bill your dad." "This is great news. I'm hoping sometime tonight or tomorrow at the latest, we'll have Tommy boy in custody. Now, go kick some butt. Plan on it." Ricky surveyed the area. Jason's man, Agent Barry Briscoe, sat right behind Shelley and Angel, right behind her. Jeff Davis and Cole Faulkner escorted Bree and Jeffy and Kimmy to the women's locker room. They would inspect the area before they allowed the girls inside and would be waiting just outside while they dressed. Unfortunately, the agents would have to watch from afar when Bree and Jeffy go off to join the other celebrity cheerleaders to do their little thing, a reason for several arguments with Bree over the past week, which Ricky lost. His eyes moved around the arena. Jason and Agent Dixon were in the security control booth. They would detain anyone fitting Tommy's height and weight, no matter the age, infirmity, or sex. Still, Ricky didn't think he would show. Not this time. Everyone's bags were searched as they came in. Everyone had to pass through a metal detector. He breathed. Time to focus on his art and let Jason take care of security for the duration. This is what he did best. He nodded to his brothers. "Mark, Joey, you ready to come help me stretch out?" "Honored, bro. Let's do it." In the locker room, Ricky took his time dressing. He wore a simple white gi, his black belt wrapped neatly around his waist. His credentials would be read publicly for the benefit of the television audience. They would include his belts in karate, jujitsu, ninjutsu, judo, and aikido. They would also include his training in kung fu and weaponry. They would talk about Zendo-Ryu and what that means. As he stretched, there was a knock, and the door opened. It was one of his competitors. Mark and Joey blocked his way immediately. The young man, approximately 25, was slightly smaller than Ricky, with dark hair and bright blue eyes. He nodded at Mark and Joey. I just wanted to shake his hand, he said. Ricky stood. It's okay, guys. He moved forward. The young man bowed and extended his hand. It's an honor, Master Kino. Ricky bowed and shook hands. Gavin Jones, brown hair, blue eyes, 5'11", 173. You're a second-degree black belt in karate. You've won 8 gold medals doing the tournament circuit both here in California and nationally. And you've just married and opened a karate studio of your own. Wow. You really did your homework, didn't you? I have to stay alive. Look, I just wanted you to know that I accepted the opportunity to fight you today, mostly so that I could meet you. You've been a hero of mine for a very long time. I guess that's one way to meet someone. Yes, well, it will be worth it. I'm sure I'll learn a great deal. Ricky nodded. I'm humbled. Listen, man, I appreciate the show of honor and respect, so do me a favor. Sure. Fight me hard. Fight me mean. Fight me with all you can muster. Don't go easy on me. This is the way you can show me honor. The man bowed. I'll give it my all. Ricky nodded, and he watched him walk away. He realized he'd sounded cocky, but he'd been sincere. This man would be his first fight, and Ricky intended to make it short and sweet. Eric had decided the strategy for the bouts and knew the only way Ricky could make it through all 5 battles was to keep them short, which probably won't be possible for the bigger guys, but should be probable for the first 2 bouts. The second fight would be with Ho Sun, the tiger. He was a smaller man of Chinese descent, 5 feet 6 inches, 150, small but quick. And the third was Neil Foster, ex-Navy SEAL, 6'2", 250 pounds, a bouncer from the San Francisco area. Slow, strong, tough as nails. Ricky would have to show some patience during that fight. The last 2 were extreme fighting competitors. Big, mean, strong, fast, but they didn't use their art. They didn't use their training. Once they were in ring, they focused strictly on a takedown and forcing their opponents into submission. Ricky was no stronger than they were. It was his speed that would be their downfall. They would be hard-pressed to take him down. And then what? Ricky stretched, hydrated himself, warmed up, and made his way out to the waiting crowd behind his brothers. A roar came from the audience as he emerged from the locker rooms, headed toward the ring in the center of the arena. They passed the ring and made their way over to his camp. His eyes scanned the other opponents quickly. He bowed his head at them ever so slightly. 3 returned the honorable gesture, the 2 smaller men and the Navy SEAL. Ricky! Jeffy yelled. She broke free from the group of cheerleaders and ran across the floor toward him as the crowd laughed. He bent down and swung her up into his arms. Hi there, Muffin. Don't you look cute in your little outfit? And His words stuck in his throat as he looked up to see Bree approaching in the same outfit. She wore a short, pleated white skirt and a white tank that had a black K in the center. She had her hair swept up in a ponytail. Her long legs were well muscled. He guessed those light workouts did accomplish something after all. His eyes met hers, and he was sure from the smile she wore that she knew exactly what effect she was having on him. His eyes traveled briefly over Caroline, whose dancer's body could make men drop to their knees. Eyebrows raised, he glanced toward his friend Toby, whose eyes followed each swing of his wife's skirt. Ricky smiled. The cheerleaders came forward and circled around him and Jeffy and gave a group cheer before they left him. Taking a page from Toby, he watched them walk away. It took a minute before he realized they had the Kino Challenge emblazoned on the back of their shirts. Okay, then, do you think you can get your mind back to where it's supposed to be? Eric asked sarcastically, or do you want to get your butt handed to you in the very first bout? Ricky turned and breathed. Oh, hi, Dad. Didn't see you. I realize that. You need to refocus. Ricky nodded. Got it. While he waited for the event to begin, he went into his Tai Chi. Eric watched as the crowd oohed and awed. The cameras panned. His son was definitely a light. Everything he did, people watched. He couldn't make a move without having someone comment or take a picture or write a story. There would be plenty to write after today. Eric glanced toward his family. Shelley was being interviewed. Jeffy and the other cheerleaders sat close, a prerequisite of being a cheerleader due to security measures. During the introductions, while the other competitors jumped around, shaking out nerves and loosening up, Ricky remained completely still. Each competitor's credentials were read as the crowd cheered. When Ricky stepped forward, the cheer became a roar. Ricky stepped back and placed his hand over his heart as the national anthem was sung by the most recent runner-up on American Idol. Afterward, the rules were reiterated for the benefit of the audience. No weapons are allowed. The only protection is a mouthguard and taped hand. Each bout consisted of 3 rounds. Points were awarded for body displacement. A contender could win by points or a knockout. The rules for punches, there are no rules. The rules for submission, if a contender taps out, you must back off immediately. At the bell, you must back off immediately. The referee's decisions are final. Master Keenan will be allowed a rest period between each bout of not more than 30 minutes. As Ricky listened, he limbered up, went into a side split to make sure he was still loose. Eric rubbed his shoulders. You ready? Yes, sir. He stepped back, untied his belt, and pulled his uniform top over his head. He knew cameras were zeroing in on what scars remained. He didn't care. He was called to the ring to shake hands with and bow to his opponent, Gavin Jones. When the fight began, the crowd went crazy. Ricky allowed Gavin time to throw some punches, but not to land them, and then he allowed Gavin to block some of his punches, and then just before the first bell, he knocked him out with a spinning hook kick. And now he was warmed up. He helped Gavin to his feet, bowed, and promised to come and visit his new studio. He joined his father and Mark and Joey. I'm warm. I don't want to wait before the next one. Eric nodded. I'll go arrange it. Ricky looked up as the cheerleaders climbed into the ring and performed a choreographed dance with Caroline mesmerizing the audience. He smiled. It was obvious Caroline knew what she was doing, and the other celebrity cheerleaders had only a few weeks to prepare. No one would care because all of them would melt ice with a look. Jeffy and Kimmy, on the other hand, were just too cute, and they were all having a grand time. They finished and headed back toward the stands, and Bree made a detour to him. Congratulations, Ricky. You were really good. You had me worried, though, when you were having trouble getting in a punch. He didn't answer, merely shook his head as he folded himself in half to stretch his hamstrings. Bree, Joey said. He wasn't having trouble. He was helping the man to save face. She frowned. Oh. Stay here with us, or better yet, go sit next to Justin, Mark offered. Get him to explain to you what's happening. It's not always as it appears. Okay. Sorry I said something so completely dumb. Ricky grabbed her around the waist. Bree. Not knowing something doesn't make you dumb, and you know that, but I really need a favor, sweetheart. What's that? I need you to be quiet. You're messing with my mind. Her chin lifted. Oh. Well, okay. Fine. I'll go sit with Justin. He watched the swing of her skirt as she turned and walked briskly away. You can make it up to her later, Mark said. Oh, I'll look forward to it. Eric returned. Get ready. A second later, they called him to the ring. And that is the end of chapter 16.